LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, welcome to the show. LIVEcast, welcome to the LIVEcast, welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome to the LIVEcast. Hopefully you can hear me, and I've unmuted the microphone and everything's working. Hopefully you're all doing well, having a good time. Thanks for joining us again this week. Back here, still in Crowborough in the back garden, enjoying the nice weather. And hopefully you've been enjoying all the interviews from previous weeks. If you've not seen them, you can still check them out on the Facebook page. If you go to the LIVEcast playlist, you should be able to find them there, or you can find them on YouTube. So I think there's about 6 or so already up, so do go and check them out. But we've got another one today. Actually, this is probably our last interview of the summer. And actually today with me I've got Mr. Steve Rees. I say Mr, that's wrong, isn't it?
Well, that's fine. Mister's good. I'm
Reverend.
Mr.
Reverend
yeah,
Mr.
very, very reverend. Yeah, just Steve Rees.
So Steve, great to have you here with us. Steve, I guess there'll be people watching who do know you, but there'll be a lot of people probably who never heard of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I won't know you from Adam.
Yeah.
Tell us who you are.
Well, I'm Steve Rees, and I am a Christian, and I'm a pastor of a church here in Crowborough. I'm the pastor of All Saints Crowborough in St Richard's, and I've just been doing that for the last 2.5 years. So before that I was a vicar in North London, Potter's Bar. Before that I was a curate, and before that I was a teacher. And I'm a father as well, and a husband. So I'm married to Jenny, and we've got 5 kids. And ranging from age 22 down to the age of 7, 1 boy and 4 girls.
Wow.
And a dog and 6 chickens. And rats because of the chickens.
And rats, yes, I've been hearing about the rats.
Yes.
Great, yeah, so as you said, I mean, you're the vicar at All Saints Crowborough. So actually Steve had the dubious honour of being my boss for a little while, didn't you?
Yeah,
so,
very good.
So if you watch, you basically, the only person, I need to get Andrew Corns on,
yes.
Then I'll have like the full sweep of my previous bosses. So you came, was it 18 months I think before I left?
That's right.
And when she'd arrived I thought I can't do this anymore.
Well, I can understand that.
Go.
Most people did leave. And so a lot of people walked out. But I didn't take it too personally.
No, it was great fun. Actually, it was lots of fun actually, as I do miss it. It was a real laugh. So tell us then, so as you said, you are a Christian, which is good as a vicar. That seems a good qualification to start with.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your background then, like where you're from and kind of where you grew up and faith in that sense.
So just like Paul, I grew up in Cardiff.
Good stuff.
It's a great place. Cardiff is a great place to be. I grew up in Cardiff, and I was brought up in a Christian family. My mum and dad and my 2 brothers, and we were brought up in a denomination called the Brethren.
Right.
And so I guess people might think of Exclusive Brethren, where you, which is a particular sort of sect and cult, really, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But also we're part of the Open Brethren, and which was just a local church where there's no pastor. It was just elders who led the church, and the elders worked during the week and they preached on Sundays. Mm-hmm. And we were brought up in a local Brethren church, and that was where I sort of came to faith.
What's kind of the distinctives of the Brethren Church? Like because I don't really know much about the Brethren, but when I hear it, I guess I think it sounds like quite a strict.
Yeah, strict is a
kind
good
of
word.
Thing. Is that what it's like?
It was strict but very real. So the part of the Brethren I grew up in was the Open Brethren, and I guess the distinctive is that actually there's no paid staff.
Right.
And actually, it's elder-led, the elders from the church family. Sunday mornings would be a communion service every week. They called it the breaking of bread, and that would be a free-for-all, really. There'd be like spirit-led, prayers, readings, hymns, and it was quite exciting as a child sitting there because you weren't quite sure who was going to preach.
Oh, really?
2 people would get up at the same time, and it was the brother with the loudest voice who got to the front who got to preach.
Nice.
Yes, that was
like a preach-off.
Well, it was a preach-off, but actually that was quite exciting as a child. We liked that, but I mean, it was. And then in the evening we'd have a gospel service. So every evening we'd have the gospel preached on Sunday night.
Well, it's funny, I was going to say that because I saw Mike Pilavachi at Coventry Cathedral once.
Yes.
He did a youth workers kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he said something about, I don't know if he'd grown up in a Brethren church as well, or whether, I'm not sure what his background is, but he'd been to a Brethren place, and he said every Sunday night they would always do a gospel.
Yes.
It was a gospel talk. It was purely like evangelistic. This is the gospel.
Yes.
And
that's what it was like. So Sunday morning was for believers. Sunday night was for non-believers.
Yeah.
And they preached the gospel every Sunday night. But the great thing about it was that actually it was a wonderful family. We had loads of young people and kids. We had an amazing Sunday school. We had amazing outreach to the local area. We used to go around in minibuses picking up kids to teach them the Bible.
Wow.
I heard the gospel, and I was taught the gospel from my parents, but also from the church. So it was very Christ-centered, very Bible-based. The youth work was fantastic. When I was there, it was a particularly strong time. And actually, it's part of a whole network of churches across Cardiff, Brethren churches. And we used to, every Saturday night, the young people would get together every Saturday night for something called a rally. Yeah. Whoa! And we'd get together for Bible teaching on a Saturday night. So everybody else in town was having revelry and going
down
out.
Caroline Street.
That's right, down the wreck. We'd be gathering together for Bible teaching as young people. So it was an amazing bubble. And actually, I came to faith, and it was a joy. And there was lots. It was fun, but it was quite strict. So there'd be those within it who thought that possibly there weren't other believers outside the Brethren. That wasn't my parents. That wasn't my parents. And also, Sunday morning, women would be hatted and gagged, and there was no musical instruments. So someone would pitch up a song. If you were going to sing a song, there's Brother Bill on the back row who'd give us a note, and we'd all start together. So it was. It was my normal, but actually I look back on it, and it was probably a lot of people might have come into that service and thought this is unusual. Right. But it was real. It was Christ focused. It was Bible based, and that's where I came to faith in Jesus Christ. So it was a wonderful place to grow up. It's very thankful for it. My dad was an elder there for many years, and one of the leaders. So
it's a bit of a segue out away from your story, but it's still to do with that though. So because it sounds really great. Yeah. In a sense, but I know like where in our kind of circles, there's like sometimes quite a big focus on like worship should be ordered.
Yes.
Like, so how does that? Was it just not ordered, or was it?
Well, it was ordered. It was ordered, but actually, when people felt moved by the Spirit to pray at the same time, that was interesting. And so basically, it would be the brother with the loudest voice. Yeah. And then someone would be quiet, and they'd come back in later. But I remember, as a boy growing up, it's quite a pressure to take part like that. So it's quite stressful. Right. Okay. So Dad used to say to me, "Look, be exercised today." And I think I've got to pray, or I've got to share a reading, I've got to do something in the service, and it just felt like a huge stress. Thinking, if I get it now, will somebody else do that? And what will I say? And how will it be? And but it was orderly. It was orderly, and it was. Reverent and solemn, but real. It was very real. Yeah. And lots of great godly people who loved the Lord Jesus. And interesting enough, the whole Brethren movement came out of Anglicanism. There's a guy called Darby who left the Anglican Church as a vicar and began a Brethren church, and I've gone the other way. Jumped back in. But actually, it was a fantastic childhood, and we had lots of camps and weekends away, and it was just a lot of fun. So it was a great place to be. I'm very thankful to God.
And was it the case that because you say you kind of came to faith there? Was that kind of in your teenage years, or was it really just from as young as you remember? Really?
Well, I think probably it was about the age of 9 I became a believer. Mm-hmm. So I remember. I remember a friend of mine, Tim Davis, saying, "I've given my life to Christ and I've become a Christian." I thought, "Oh wow, okay, that's maybe something I need to do." And actually, I can't rely on my parents' faith; I need my own faith. So I remember as a boy of 9, feeling a sense of conviction, needing to give my life to Christ, repent of my sins, and come to Jesus. And I said to my mum, "I want to become a Christian," and she prayed with me, and I prayed the prayer and invited Christ into my life. Now, whether that was the moment when I was saved, I don't know, because I grew up in the faith, but actually it's very important to me that I had that moment of decision of wanting to follow Christ. Then I was baptised when I was 12 by my dad, and on a boiling hot day in a freezing cold pool to come to church. But it was great. It's my way of professing that I follow Jesus Christ. So I did come to a personal commitment about the age of 9, and actually I was bizarrely, I was not fearful of being a Christian, and I got a lot of stick for it at school. Went to Llanishton High School and got a lot of bullying for being a believer. Where did you go?
Rough school.
Where did you go?
I went to Cardiff High.
Cardiff High.
That was like your proper rivals down the road from you.
You were such a bunch of snooty people. Cardiff High. You were.
Everyone said they had a massive drug problem, but I'm not sure that's well. I think that's quite epidemic of well-off people anyway, isn't it?
Well, it's such a pucker school. Llanishton was a bit more rough and ready. Llanishton High School.
Yeah. My best man went to Llanishton.
Did he?
So yeah.
Very good.
Probably in a different year to you, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm much older than you. I know I'm older than you.
So you become a Christian, and how did that kind of shape your life then? I mean, obviously you say at school people knew you were a Christian and stuff. Yeah. But kind of coming out of school, or through your school years, I mean, were you kind of aware of like, I am a Christian and I'm different and I've got different things to do?
I was aware that I was different, and that wasn't always easy to be different. And actually, whilst you get mocked for it, there was a respect, I think. So I had quite a hard time my first few years of secondary school, bullied quite a lot, and given a hard time following Christ and professing Christ. I lost a lot of confidence, not in the gospel, but in myself because of that. But actually, I look back and God was very gracious, and we had a great little Christian union school run by people in our church actually, and that was a real help. And Pete, the staff knew I was a Christian, so often you'd be put on the spot. Go on, Steve, you're a Christian. What do you think?
Resident Christian.
Yeah, well, I know. I hate that sometimes.
In the RE class.
I was.
Yeah,
RE
absolutely.
history, and I said anything about PSE. Steve, what do you think? And I was thinking, don't ask me again. But actually, I was the guy who'd give an opinion quite strongly, and I wasn't afraid to stand up. But I didn't find it very easy. But the Lord kept me, and I had a wonderful Christian family who prayed for me and taught me Christ, and really supported me. I think for me, going to university is quite key.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Exeter University, and
what were you doing? What were you
I
studying?
was studying English and drama and
Okay.
education.
Great.
Spent 3-4 years dancing around doing drama. It's a really hard degree. So that was great. I did that, which is amazing. It's a great course, actually. I loved it. But I remember going to university, and I was put in a house. So the drama department also was next door to the PE department, and I was in a house with a bunch of PE lads. They were a great bunch of lads, but they were proper lads.
Proper lads, yeah. I can
Yeah,
imagine.
and I just thought, and my dad dropped me off. He said to me, "Steve, nail your colours to the mast," and so I did. And there were times when I just wanted to be like everybody else and just blend in.
Yeah.
But I knew that my experience of Christ was so real that I couldn't. So I felt the pressure to be like everybody else and just join in with everything. But actually I knew that Jesus was real, and I couldn't turn my back on that, and I wanted to live for Christ. So God gave me that grace and strength. But it wasn't easy. It's hard to be the odd one out at times.
Yeah.
And also the drama world is quite a kind of liberal and moral world, really.
Sure,
And
yeah.
there's times when I was involved in various plays and I refused to say certain lines, and people got cross with me and they said, "Why are you saying that?" Well, because I'm a Christian, I'm not going to say that, I'm not going to blaspheme, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't easy to do that, but God gives you grace, doesn't he? But actually university was key, so I thought, actually, here I am, away from mum and dad, away from the family home. I could go either way. I could actually stop following Christ. But actually, he was so real, I could never turn my back on him. And he never let go of me. And the temptation was there at times, just to say, it's just too much effort.
Yeah.
I just want to go with everybody else. But actually, I knew that Lord's way was the best way, but it wasn't easy.
And was it whilst you were at uni, was that where you met Jenny?
Well, yes.
Or was that later?
Yeah, I did. Well, I met Jenny at university. She was doing a PGCE.
Right.
So she arrived in my last year at university. I did 4 years. She came in my last year. And I had spotted her. And I discovered where her Bible study group was, and I joined it.
Right.
Yeah.
With all good
Oh,
intentions.
because I just love to study the Bible. I do love studying the Bible. But actually, I thought, well, if she's in that little group, I might go and join that group. So I joined her group. I was quite unashamed, really, and got to know her. And I think she saw me as a friend for a long time. And then suddenly, we kind of got together in the last week of university before we left.
It's the classic time, isn't it?
It is going
Yeah.
so...
We're going to go our separate ways. So
how about, I kind of like you and I think you like me. But so, yeah, we got together. So, yeah, amazing. I knew a brother before that. He was at university with me, David. And then Jenny rocked up at CU and spotted her. And I thought, oh, you're really nice. So I got to know her. And then we got together last week of term, which was a joy.
And so did you go, I mean, obviously you were together, but did you go your separate ways
we
then?
did.
So where did you go
I
then?
went to teach in Cardiff.
Right, so
in
that's when
Llanrumney.
you came...
And a fantastic school, and in Llanrumney, a primary school. I went to teach there. Jenny went to teach at a really posh school in Bath.
Oh, right, well, it's
There you
worlds
see.
apart,
Well,
really.
yeah, she taught at
Llanrumney
Monkton
and Bath.
Combe, which was a fantastic Christian boarding school, and she was living there, and I was living in Cardiff with mum and dad's, getting back to my mum and dad's church. And I taught in Llanrumney.
Was that secondary school?
Primary?
Then? Primary,
yeah.
okay, right.
Yeah, it's primary school teacher, and
Right.
actually, yeah, it was.
I'd always thought you were secondary school. Don't know why.
Yeah. No, I was just being Mr. Creative with the kids.
Yeah.
I was giving out the colouring pencils to doing drama and teaching Welsh.
You must have had a blast.
It was great fun. I'll never forget, we had a head teacher called Mr. Pengilly, and he used to say to me, he used to keep it tight, Steve, keep it tight. And when you go outside and you play football with the kids, watch your extremities, wear gloves. So I used to wear gloves. But some of the kids were so naughty, they'd be running across the football pitch. I'd be chasing after them to keep them in the lesson. They were tricky kids.
Right, yeah.
But it was great. I've always taught in tough schools. I taught there, and I taught in Islington when we got married, in another tough school. Jenny's always taught in nice schools.
Right, yeah.
But that's okay. That's okay.
And I mean, I don't know what's it like being a Christian as a teacher in a school setting. I mean, because I don't know, because I thought you'd done secondary school.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, I might be wrong. My assumption is in secondary school, like, it's harder to be a Christian teacher.
Yeah.
There must be lots of other factors coming in, but I don't know. I mean, tell me, was there anything?
I think we're talking a long time ago now, Paul.
No.
So it's like probably 26 years ago.
Yeah.
When I was teaching Llanrumney, and then even then it was normal to be Christian and have the Lord's Prayer and stuff in school, and
Right,
assemblies were
okay,
more
so
Christian, so the culture was
in course in
different.
primary, much more the case.
And it was, and actually, so that was kind of okay.
Singing hymns.
Yeah,
and-
definitely. And actually, I was quite able to be open about my faith with the kids, and that was absolutely fine.
Mm.
Then when we got married, I went to teach at a Church of England school in central London, Islington.
Okay, so it's much more.
And it was overtly Christian, and
Yeah,
actually a lot
yeah.
of the staff were young Christians, and it was amazing. It was a tough school again. The kids were fantastic, but many came from deprived backgrounds. And actually, what sustained me during that time, because it was challenging, the behaviour was really challenging, was the fact that I had other Christians to pray with.
Right.
So it was overtly Christian. The headmaster was a wonderful evangelical Christian guy,
Oh,
and
great.
he's just free for all. So we just, it was a great place to be. So for me, it wasn't tough. But I reflect now on schools that are not church schools, and actually growing up in Cardiff, even state schools, you'd say the Lord's Prayer, and it's very
Oh, yeah,
Christian.
yeah,
but actually
we did,
now,
yeah.
that's just not part of the landscape.
No.
It's totally changed. Unless it's a church school, why would you do anything like that?
Mm.
There's a massive shift in
Yeah,
culture.
yeah, absolutely. And so
It's
then,
a huge privilege to be a teacher. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you're shaping these kids' lives, and actually be a Christian for them, and talk about Christ for them, but also teach them. And I did love it.
yeah,
I did love it.
and you may be, you just never know, do you? You may well be the only Christian
Well, that's the
they
thing.
have contact with in their lives.
Yeah, it's a great
know.
profession.
Yeah, yeah.
It's great holidays as well.
Yeah. But what made you give up the holidays then,
Well,
Steve?
why did I do that?
So, because how long did you teach for?
I taught for probably about 7 years.
Okay.
Not a huge long time. And funny enough, growing up, I'd always had a sense that I would do some sort of full-time Christian ministry. Obviously, every Christian is full-time. You're a Christian, whatever you do, aren't you? Whether you work in a secular environment or a Christian environment. But I'd always had a sense that maybe one day God would call me to get to work and be paid as a Christian worker. And when I grew up in the Brethren, because actually you didn't have ministers, so I thought I'd be a schools worker or a
Right,
missionary.
yeah.
So growing up, we had loads of missionaries in our church, and we had connections to missionaries. So mission was massive growing up. We had missionaries for tea, and in our house we always entertained the speakers. It's like part of our life, these amazing people. So I thought maybe I'll be a missionary, or maybe I'll go and do a full-time schools work.
Yep.
But it was only when I married Jenny, and I began to think about what should I do, that I thought about maybe I should go and do a bit of training. So Jenny and I were serving at Christchurch Cop Fosters, was Jenny's home church. We were both teaching at the time, and we were involved with leading youth work and stuff like that there. And the opportunity came up to take a year out and do Cornhill.
Right.
And
yeah.
the Lord opened the door for me to do that, and that was great. And I went into that not really knowing what I was going to do, but it was the encouragement of David Jackman, who said, "Look, Steve, you should really think about doing pastoral ministry." And I hadn't really thought about it till that point.
Mm.
My brother already sort of
He's good, David Jackman, isn't he?
He's great.
I
He's
like
great.
his stuff.
Yeah, he's fantastic stuff. He's such a great guy, and he was just so wise and pastoral, and really encouraged me to think about, Steve, you should think about this.
Yeah.
So that's where that whole idea of pastoral ministry came up, and that's how the penny started sort of dropping, and the ball began rolling. I went back to teach for a bit. Then I went to work for 2 years at Enfield Free Church in Enfield, and I was pastor's assistant there. Did lots of youth work, and
So this is before any kind of official
it was
Church of England?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny. During that time, I thought actually I think I probably feel that I should be working in the Church of England, because actually I never thought I would. Not as a
Right.
Brethren boy, never.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
The other side.
The other side. And so actually.
And can you remember what it was that made you start to think like maybe?
I just think
No,
that
just-
I think I look back at Jenny and I functioning in the church family at Cop Fosters, and we were very much at home there in that environment, and we thrived there. I had a great time at Enfield Free, and I learnt masses there. But I think that sense of actually the Lord was calling us to be within the Church of England became clear, and they were very gracious about that.
Mm.
So I spent 2 years there. I learnt masses from Johnny Prime, who's one of the leaders of FIC now.
Related to Optimus.
Optimus Prime,
Optimus
yes,
Prime.
best friends. But actually, he's an extraordinary pastor. I learnt masses from him, so that I use Shaped by Ministry now.
Yeah.
But we actually went from Enfield Free to Oak Hill
Right. Yep.
as independents, and I began pushing the door to see whether ordination would happen. So that was the process, really. God laid it on my heart that I did some sort of full-time work. Wasn't sure what that would be. Then Cornhill, and then Enfield Free, and then Oak Hill, and then I got through selection,
Yep.
and now I'm Anglican, but evangelical Christian first.
And there'll be people watching who, or listening in at various points who, they're not Anglican.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't like calling myself Anglican,
Yeah.
but I mean, I've been in Anglican churches all my whole life
Yes.
anyway. But even I don't still really understand all the ins and outs.
Yeah.
So you train, don't you? You
Yes.
do, was it 3 years?
So you do well, if you're over 30, you do 2 years. If you're
Right.
under 30, you do 3. But because I'd done my first year as an independent, we funded that by continue working. People supported us. So I
Right.
did 3 years.
Okay.
But it was residential training at Oak Hill we did.
And then you get a curacy.
Yeah.
So which is, how can we define a curacy for people that don't
Well,
use this terminology?
maybe it's like the whole thing of like an apprenticeship.
Yeah, kind of
So
like
you-
apprentice vicar.
And it's apprentice
Yeah.
vicar. It is apprentice vicar.
You're fired.
You're fired. Yeah, that didn't happen. But you're apprentice vicar, and so I did that for 3 years in the Cotswolds, which was amazing.
Okay.
So that was fantastic. I worked with a great guy called Steve Rees in Morton-in-Marsh, and an amazing staff team, pastoral worker Claire Mason and various people on the staff team. But it was a fabulous 3 years. I was bombing around. We were working in 5 churches.
Wow.
But the main church in the town centre, Morton-in-Marsh St David's, had just really grown into Steve's ministry, and it had been in a more liberal Catholic tradition. And then Steve came as an evangelical and just taught the gospel, and just the church began to grow, and it was just a fabulous place to be.
Yeah.
I loved it. I love working with Steve. He was such a generous guy and so gracious, and happy for him to thrive and encourage me. So I loved that. I loved it. I loved being in a small community. Got to know everybody. You know, one year I had to put the Christmas lights on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
There you
Kira was
go.
big.
It's the celeb we've
Yeah,
got this,
well, it was
this
just
year.
like that. But
Brilliant.
actually, I loved it. It was a really happy time. But I learned masses about pastoral work, about how to run a church, and evangelism. Steve was a great evangelist, and lay on fantastic, we did these superb missions, and that was really exciting. So I learned masses from him. So that was really good. And also during my time at Oak Hill, I'd spent a couple of years placed with a guy called Astra Sidder in Hampstead, and I learnt masses from him about ministry. So really, I was very privileged. I spent a lot of time with some amazing church leaders and in some fantastic churches, and it's helped shape who I am and what I do now.
And so you do, was it 3 years curacy, and then you come out, and then do you go straight then, is it Little Heath? Is that
Little
straight
Heath.
into vicaring?
So the normal route is you do curacy, and then you go and get a vicar job, or you go and get an associate vicar job. And so I applied for a job in Little Heath, which is Potters Bar, which is just on the edge of North London. It's Hertfordshire, junction 24 or 23 on the M25.
Don't look at me, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, so
Did you struggle to get home?
Well, actually, I drove. Yeah, I did. Where is
Kind of wrong junction again.
But it's a nice sign saying Potters Bar, so that made it really clear. So Little Heath was on the edge of Potters Bar, and I went there as a vicar, about 12 years ago now. I started there 12 years ago.
Really?
Yes. So I was a young man. I was like 36.
Knee high to a grasshopper.
I was a nipper and naive and green behind the ears, and yeah. But that was a great time. There was lots of challenges. Because you're a new guy going in, and you're not hugely experienced, and you've got to lead a church. But God was very kind to us and put some amazing people in our church family that supported us. And by God's grace, we saw the church grow and people becoming Christians. So that was a hugely encouraging time. And we were there for sort of 9.5 years.
And then, so kind of as you're approaching that 9.5 years, I mean, I guess at that point you're kind of looking. Yeah. You're looking. Well, I know you must have been looking because you ended up here.
Yeah.
What's kind of the process in your head at that point? Because there are some people who would, I know what I'm doing. I can just stay where I am.
Yes.
Like, what kind of made you want to?
I think that we always thought that we would be at Little Heath 10 years maximum. But we were open to staying longer if the Lord shut the door. He was very encouraging, and we had great people we loved, and actually leaving was very, very hard. But I think we just felt that church was in a place whereby I had a great curate who could look after stuff, I had great church wardens, and a strong PCC, and actually it was probably time for somebody else to come in and trying to push the ministry forward. So I think we felt we were able to look at that point, but actually we were perfectly happy to stay. Do you know what I mean? We weren't unhappy. We happily have stayed, and the Lord had kept us there, we'd have stayed there. Do you know what I mean? Your kids were settled, all their friends were there. We had great friends there, great staff team. It was a really happy place to be for us, and it was no pressure on applying for places because we weren't desperate to get out.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know, that's the nice thing.
That's the nice. Yeah. And so, how did you come across All Saints?
Well,
in this.
I'd heard that Andrew was probably retiring, previous incumbent. Yeah. And obviously I knew about All Saints Crowborough and Andrew Corns and his ministry there and his books. But actually it was really because 3 people approached us independently and said, you should look at this job, you should look at this job, you should look at this job. And
people from your own
from my own life,
group.
but actually but actually they were not linked.
Yeah.
So I think one friend met a member of the staff on a wives' conference, and she texted her saying you should think about this job on a women's ministry conference. And then another friend of ours met somebody else at the church saying, look, this is coming up, you should look at it. And another guy said, look, Steve, you should look at this. There's 3 different texts came within about 2 weeks of each other, so we felt well, maybe the Lord's prompting us to apply.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and you did apply,
and here we are.
And you made it through. I always remember. So there was that process when there were all these applications, and being
you lived through this, didn't you?
Well, there's absolutely being on the staff. You're kind of privy to information, but also you're not allowed to know anything.
Well, I know it's very
weird.
cloak and dagger. It is. Yeah.
But I always remember the day when you and Jenny came for your interview, and they said to the staff that you were coming, and you were coming to the office first,
yes,
to then be shown where to go, and you were coming at this particular time, and just by chance,
were you in the office?
All the staff were in the office at that point. Just what are the odds that we'd all be there?
That's so
and
funny.
then so you came in, you and Jenny came in, and you were like, oh hello, and we had a little chat. I'm Steve, Jenny, and you said, I said, where you come from, and you said, Little Heath or wherever it was, and I was like, oh great, yeah, we had a little chat, and you went on. And then I literally just turned around to the computer. I was just like, Steve, Jenny, Vicar, Little Heath. And I was like, there he is. That's who he is. I was like, we found them.
Well, it's so funny, because when Roz came to greet us, the office manager, she said, oh, hello, Colin, how are you? Colin? Who's Colin? Which of my friends called Colin's applying for the job? I've got no friends called Colin. Who's Colin?
Yeah.
But apparently that was a nickname for the new vicar. She'd had a dream that the guy would be called Colin.
Really?
Yeah, so there you go.
I'm sure you've been called worse things.
Well, when I went into Mark's office for my little interview with those other guys, I saw my face on his screen, so obviously the word had got around. Little Heath Potter's Bar, and he was there looking at my face and trying to suss me out.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you get the job,
yeah.
and so you've been at All Saints now since it was about February, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2016 was it? Yes, because you arrived, you moved in the week I moved in here.
That's right.
That was the thing. Yes.
That's right.
And I guess Andrew, had been with us for kind of 26 years or something crazy like that. And actually, All Saints is it was and is in a good place. I mean, it's not a church that you look at and go, oh my word, this needs loads of turning around. It was gospel centered, and big focus on Bible teaching and stuff, and things like that. But tell us then about, you coming into it, because I don't know if you had ideas before you arrived, but I know you'd already done a sabbatical in your previous job, and you'd looked at a particular angle of church growth there.
Yes.
So maybe tell us a bit about that and your thought process coming in, and what is it you're aiming to, which we're kind of covering all Saints now. What are you aiming to do, and let's chat about that.
Okay. So the context is, I had a sabbatical at Little Heath for 3 months, and actually Little Heath had grown to about 250 on a Sunday. And actually, I was just thinking, how do we push this church forward into the next stage of growth? How do we keep growing this place? What do we need to do?
And is that because there's this weird thing, isn't there, where churches kind of top out?
There's this whole thing. There's these barriers of growth you've got to get through sometimes. I know it sounds all very sort of like secular, but actually there is something about numbers and plateauing and how you push through that. So my sabbatical, my concern was for Little Heath, actually, how do we push to the next level of growth? We're full on a Sunday morning at the 10:30 service, and how do we push that forward? How do we grow? How do we expand? And we'd run out of space. So I went to my sabbatical. The focus of my sabbatical was visiting churches that had pushed through that level of growth, and actually just seeing what church leaders were doing and how they'd grown places. So that was the focus of my sabbatical, which is really interesting. And I met some great people. I went to spend some time with a guy called Ray Evans, who's written a book called Ready, Steady, Grow, and he's the pastor of Grace Church in Bedford. And that church he's seen the church grow, and it's a large church now. And I went to spend a day with him. He's very generous. He went on a Sunday and he talked to me about just his strategies for growth. Yeah. Also, I spent time with Chris Green, St James Muswell Hill.
Okay, yeah.
He's done a lot of thinking about that. He's written a book about the church. There's a BST book about the church he's written. He taught me at Oak Hill. He's now the pastor of St James Muswell Hill. And actually, time with him was really valuable. In fact, I went back to him before I came here to spend some time with him, because he's thought this stuff through. Also, I did quite a bit of online stuff with a church called EV Church in Australia.
Is this the one that started off very small?
Tiny in its front room. It's just huge now. It's
like
great.
Thousands, isn't it?
It is, and it's an amazing gospel place. It's and they've got many congregations. And I think the things that these three places had in common and how they pushed the levels of growth was just a clarity about, you know, structure and organisation and thinking about ministry and church life. So, and actually all of it has come out of Rick Warren's purpose-driven church stuff.
Okay.
So they all say that's where it begins. You know,
Yeah.
he had his baseball court and the different aspects of church life,
Mm-hmm.
where they developed their own little scheme. So Ray Evans had this triangle and he had 3 M's. There's all these M's. Like M.
Lots of M's.
Lots of M's. So yeah, ministry, maturity, and ministry.
Mayhem.
I think mayhem. and the way he'd grown, he had that vision of this triangle, and actually over time he'd appointed staff to cover those areas to enable them to flourish.
Yeah.
And over in Sydney, not Sydney, in the Central Coast, Australia, Andrew Hurd, he's got this thing called the Matrix. Okay, sounds good,
Is it
isn't
the
it?
red pill or the blue
I know,
pill?
yeah, exactly. It's very exciting. But actually, once again, it's all these M's which you'll find in Rick Warren's book. You know, maturity, ministry, mobilisation, multiplication, all these different things, where you focus in on the different things that churches should be doing, and you give leadership into those things. It enables stuff to push forward. And Chris Green has done that with a house vision. Look, this is all meant for him. This is our own artwork done by Barney, who's on a few weeks ago.
So if you saw Barney a few weeks ago, there you go. This camera here.
Look at that.
Camera 2.
Camera 2, coming, camera 2. It's a lovely leaflet we've produced. Look at it. It's beautiful. And that's Jack Design did that. Credit to Jack Design. Barney's picture. But actually, so this is Chris Green's stuff. He had a different picture, and he very kindly let me use this. And the whole idea is that God is building his church, his house. And actually ministry is seen in terms of a house, and you've got different rooms in the house, and I can't even see them because I'm so old. So you've got magnification at the heart of the house, which is about glorifying Christ, you know, Romans 12 in view of God's mercy. Membership, maturity, mobilisation, ministry, multiplication. Multiplication is like more churches, more congregations for Christ. Mobilisation is all about, you know, evangelism. Membership is about belonging and fellowship and pastoral care. Ministry is about, you know, serving, and maturity is all about growing in faith. And basically they just give a shape to what you're trying to do as a church family and the focus of that. And also you've got the house frame, which is basically the structural stuff, you know, the buildings, the money, the staff who function and make stuff happen. And of course it's all built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets. It's all built on the scriptures. So, and that was what I was tasked to do when I came. You know, All Saints is in good shape. It's a great church, but actually one of the jobs I was given when I came by the diocese and by the PCC was to develop a 5-year plan for the church for continued growth and focus in ministry. And actually, you know, I thought I'd be implementing all this stuff at Little Heath, but God used that time to help me think how I could do that for All Saints and just try and clarify what we're doing as a church family. And actually now we have a member of staff in charge of most of these. I think we launched it last year, the House Vision, and a year on we've got various members of staff heading up different parts of the room, different parts of the house to try and develop those and grow those. And they've all got, you know, we had a vision day and the church family were involved and we did questionnaires and we produced a 5-year plan which is in here, which is basically got various things that we're going to try and do in each room of the house. And it's just giving a bit of clarity in terms of what I'm doing, what the church family are doing, and
there's lots of overlap on them as well.
There is,
you know,
absolutely. It's kind of slightly artificial.
Sure.
But actually it does work so far.
And because but and you do need that though. You need actually. I mean, just talking about Rick Warren's, the phrase purpose-driven church. It's very easy just to be maintenance mode church, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And not like we're going somewhere with a vision and this is where we want to go.
And if you're complacent, you can look at the numbers and think, well, we're okay.
And also, so I think is, you know, we are a largish church, and so it would be easy to do that. But I distinctly remember having a conversation with you. I think after, so you came and you had your, I don't know what they call it when you have your, you know, when the bishop comes and the installation, you know,
I was
installed you like run DOS or whatever it is, installed on the computer as on the operating system. I think after that, and then not long after that, we had an APCM, which was the old style APCM where it was in an evening, I think. And the conversation you and I had was, or I think I said it to you. I said, you know, it was good. There's people here. I said, but there's a lot of grey hairs here, and that wasn't a negative in the sense of, you know, there's nothing wrong with old people.
No, I've got grey hair coming.
Great that.
Thank you very much.
But we're saying actually, there's very much a danger of becoming an aging church. Give it 10, 15 years, actually, you could easily see how some of those people who are at the kind of middle age now are going to be, you know, through retirement and perhaps taking more of a back seat sometimes. But it was just noticeable, I suppose, that we've got a good younger core at All Saints, but actually you've got to build on that and go with that and stuff.
Absolutely.
So,
And that's key, isn't it? And one of the things I'm kind of slightly haunted by and challenged by is that whenever I go to like a big town event, so the carnival for instance, or like whenever like a street market in central Crowborough, I just see families, loads of families, and who need Christ. And I just think that, you know, just having a clarity about we're trying to reach people with the gospel and we're trying to mature people, just keeping that on the agenda, keeping evangelism on the agenda and discipleship on the agenda is key. And we've got a whole town to reach. And I think of the stuff in Acts 18, and the Lord speaks to Paul, and he says about, you know, don't be quiet, don't be afraid. There's many more people in this town. The Lord, and he sticks for a year and a half. But actually, there's a sense that actually there are people here who the Lord will save, and actually we've got to keep reaching them. It's a huge encouragement, and it's a massive task. But I see all these families at the school gates, and I see families in town. I think, gosh, how are we going to reach you for the gospel? And God in his grace very kindly is actually saving people. Yeah. But I should love to see more saved and more young families saved, as he cannot be complacent. So I think something like this, you know, it's structural, but actually it gives focus, isn't it? And it helps me as I lead the church to try and keep the vision, but also helps people think about what we're about. But the challenge is keeping this in front of people.
Yeah, so it works two ways, doesn't it? Or, you know, or however many ways, more than one way. Yeah. Because like you say, it works for you as as the vicar and as a staff and as like a PCC. Yeah. That you have something you can say, are we still on track? Yes. Are we, or you know, because it's so easy just to veer off or do other things. But also, it's for us in the pew. Yes. It's saying this is who we are, this is what we do, and actually this is why we're here. We're not here just because you know it's so easy, isn't it, to come to church and be like, I'm just here this week for. This is for me to get my top up of the week or whatever it is. Yes. And actually saying this is who we are, this is our mission. It works both sides, doesn't it? I've not really prepped you on this, but if there are people watching or may see this later, like people who run churches or whatever, and they're kind of thinking, they're at that stage where they're just going, I don't know what to do. Like, what would you say, you know, what would you point them in the direction of to do now?
Well, I think if you're a leader of a church, I think it's really great to get a church family together for like a vision morning or something, just to kind of assess where you are. And that's the whole process of saying, look, where are we now? 5 years' time, where would you love to be? And how do we get there? Some sort of structure. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the house.
No,
it could be a triangle or a matrix. But some way of saying, look, this is where we are. This is where, under God, we'd love to be. What are a few things we can do to get to that point? So it doesn't have to be as epic as this. This is quite a detailed document, but also it's quite a complicated big church, so it's easier to do that. But it might be one or two things we're going to do in the next year to actually enable us to get to where we want to be. Maybe we're going to reach more families. How are we going to do that? What we're going to put on in the church family to reach people? What's our strategy? What's our plan? It just sharpens the mind, doesn't it? Otherwise you can just... And also you don't want to be overwhelmed. You know, different churches, different sizes, and actually different pressures and stuff. But actually we can all say, look, this is where we are now, Lord, as a church. You know, and we'd love to be here in 2 years or 3 years. What can we do to try and get there? Yeah. And you might not get it. You might get there and exceed that, but it gives a bit of vision and direction, doesn't it, in terms of what you're doing? And that's exciting for people because they can get behind that. I think that's helpful to people and to me.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for coming and chatting. It's been great to hear a bit about your past and also to think about All Saints. And I do hope, you know, I hope there is stuff that's encouraging for people. You know, there might be people who would just hear this and think, well, you know, I'm in the pew, and actually you think I could go to my pastor and say, what are we doing? And you know, and actually sometimes it needs that, doesn't it, from the grounds up. Or there may be people who are running churches and you know, they just need that kind of actually we do want to go and do something. So thank you for joining me here. The weather looks like it's on the turn, so
that's a shame, isn't it? We're going on holiday this weekend, aren't we?
And different places. You're going as well.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Yeah, so well, but it's been great to have you here on the. I was going to say you've joined me here on the decking with the chimenea. I have to mention the chimenea because the chimenea was actually my leaving gift from All Saints.
Yeah, look at it.
So it's been there on display. And my wife said the first week I was here, she said, you know, you didn't bother taking the cover off.
I'm pleased you have. Do you use it?
We used it the other night, actually. We used it a few times, but the problem is you just got to keep getting more wood.
Like, that's the thing. It does burn, doesn't it?
Yeah, so, you know, ongoing. But, So, as actually you've just segued nicely, saying on holidays. So, actually, I'm heading off next week. So actually, if you've been watching the livecast over the last kind of 7 weeks while Glenn's been away, and the interviews, hope you've enjoyed those. Probably that's going to be kind of the end of our interviews, but there will be stuff out on Tuesday lunchtimes over the next few weeks still. I hope we can just put up a few kind of sermons and bits. So hopefully there'll still be something if you're the kind of person who sits down on Tuesday lunchtime, eat your lunch, and you want something a little bit edifying. Hopefully, something I provide you with will edify you in some way. But I think so that there won't be any more live interviews. But I hope you've enjoyed them. Glenn does have an interview I think lined up. He sent me an email this morning. He's got something pre-recorded, but I don't know all the details about that yet. But do check in for that. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed listening to Steve. Steve, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
And I'll probably see you live again sometime in September. So until then, have a good summer and take care.